Good evening and welcome to the May 9th meeting of the Auburn Board of Selectmen. This meeting is being recorded. Is there anyone else in the audience also recording? Seeing none, let me read this first. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Select Board is being operated in a hybrid format under Chapter 22 of Acts of 2022. The public can join the meeting remotely by telephone at 1-408-650-3123 and access code 235-235-861, or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/235-235-861. All supporting materials have been provided to members, are available on the town's website. Public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. As a preliminary matter, this is Tristan LaLiberty, Chair of the Auburn Select Board. All members are present and accounted for, as are all town employees that are participating. No one's participating remotely, so we do not need roll call votes except for the last item. With that, we stand and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just heard her say hello. Sharon, are you on?
Yep, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, first agenda item is public comments. So like I said before, if you have public comments related to the town manager item, that's the last item on the agenda, and you have to leave early, you're not planning to stay for the whole meeting, you're welcome to come up now and make your comments. Otherwise, I'd ask you to hold them off, and we're going to make time for that discussion at the end. I do know that there is one member who wants to speak on another matter. Yep, you can come up and just say your name and address for the record. You know. Yep.
Norman LaFlash. I live at 44 Richard Street here in Auburn. And the reason I'm coming here for citizens' comments is this Saturday, the letter carriers of actually of the entire country are having our 28th annual food drive, Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive. This is actually the first time in 3 years. The last time we actually collected food was 2019. And we were notified. Usually we find out toward the end of the year. We found out a couple months ago that they're actually going to try to do it this year, and nothing's been canceled yet. So this Saturday, we ask that you leave your non-perishable food items unexpired, because food pantries really can't use expired food. It's nice to clean out your pantries and stuff, but the food pantries and the people can only use good food and hasn't expired. Most of you, I've got one here, may have already received one of these bags. If you did not, even if you did not, all you need to do, it's an easy way to participate. Wherever you get your mail, if you get it at the post office, if you have a P.O. box, if you have one of those neighborhood boxes, if you get it, a box on post and deliver to your house, wherever you get your mail, leave out non-perishable food items. The carriers during the day are going to be picking that up. Two of the bigger food pantries I know that are going to be receiving the food is North American Martyrs and Auburn Youth and Family Services. So those are two organizations that help a lot of people in town. And the food that you donate is going to go, as everybody knows, the need for food and the need for services is even greater than it has been. And this is one way that you can participate. So if you can this Saturday, leave out your non-perishable food items. We'll be glad to bring it to the food pantries and get it to the people in town that need it. So thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just give the opportunity for anyone that is planning to leave early that wants to come up. All right, seeing none. That's it for public comment. Public hearings and presentations, we have none. Communications, we have none. The select board general items, we have a discussion and vote to transmit the draft wage theft bylaw to town administration for review. Members will remember at our last meeting, we took a vote to go down the route of a bylaw as opposed to executive order or a board policy with regards to wage theft. This is the same draft that's been in the packets a couple of times. I'm just asking for a vote tonight to transmit it to town administration for their review. So they can make final edits before we go to fall town meeting with it. If members have any comments or changes that you want to suggest now, you can also do that don't know if there's anything you want to add to that item.
Through the chair, no, we're happy to review it and probably share it with town council, as the chair just said, make sure he goes through it for legal language.
No questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we transmit.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Last one, right. Next, item 5B, we have a vote to commit to placing a ballot question to repeal the recreational marijuana ban voted in on May of 2017. So I know we've been discussing this for a while. We've gone back and forth with town council as to what the process would be to actually have the voters reconsider this. I'd like us to commit tonight to having a ballot question, not the language, we wouldn't have the language tonight, but a ballot question put on in November for voters in Auburn to reconsider this ban. And again, I'll turn to town administration if there's anything you want to add.
Through the chair, just for a matter of process, as you know, when the time comes when the board develops the language, then the language of a ballot question would have to come to this board. The board would have to approve that. We would run that through town council. I did include in the packet a letter from town council regarding this issue, and it's not as simple as one might think, because the new law did not give a provision for repealing a ban. It only gave a provision for instituting a ban. So the town council is working with the Attorney General's office and other sources at the state to find out what would be the process, the legal process for doing that. So as we work on it over the coming months, then we can start working with the board. The board will eventually have to vote on the language that goes on the ballot. And that, we can talk to the town clerk, but I believe that would probably have to be done in August. Possibly September, but I think August.
Board members have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to commit to placing a ballot question to repeal the recreational marijuana ban as voted in May of 2017 on the November ballot.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. All right. Agenda item 5C. This is an item to thank Mr. Berthium for his 6 years of service on the Board of Selectmen. And I have something prepared, but I don't know if other members want to kick it off first. All right, so to everyone in the audience, Mr. Berthium, this is his last meeting. He's not planning to run for re-election, so as of May 17th, we will have a new member of this board. And no offense to our previous chair who's in the audience, but I think you got a bigger farewell, and she did. So to Lionel, I know it said a lot, but I can genuinely, I can't genuinely express what a pleasure it's been to serve with you over the last 5 years. You know, from campaigning against each other to voting against each other, I can honestly say that you are my favorite rival that I think I will ever have. Over the weekend, I saw someone comment on a Facebook thread about how the board makes a decision. The members need to be team players. And even if they don't necessarily support the move, they need to work together to get the job done. And my immediate thought was to tag you in it, because frankly, I don't think that there's any other board member that quite embodies the team spirit as much as you. If you are against any idea and the board moves forward with it, despite your objections, you're the first one to ask, okay, what's the next step to get it accomplished? You would never be the kind of person to sit back and say, well, I wasn't a part of that decision, so it's not on me. And that's something that I think the rest of us, myself very much included, are guilty of a lot of the time. Because of that dedication, you really are a pleasure to work with on any issue that comes before the board or before the town. And your respect for the other members, your dedication to giving everyone all the time in the world to convert you to their side of thinking, and your genuine open-mindedness on matters that come up are admirable qualities that you possess and that we could all learn from. When I was first elected, you immediately took me under your wing and became a great friend of mine on and off the board. Being the youngest member, I was afraid that I wouldn't be taken seriously, and you showed me immediately that that wasn't true. I remember you saying after our little candidates debate in 2016 that had I been old enough, you would have invited me out for drinks afterwards. And then, of course, you told me that we would have to wait for that time to come. And sure enough, as soon as I turned 21, you were asking me what weekend I'd be available to come back from Amherst to meet for a beer. Those small gestures meant more to me than you could ever know. I really do appreciate it. So I'm wishing you all the best, and I know that we'll be staying in touch, but I want to thank you for your 6 years of service to the town and for your 6 years and counting of friendship to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yeah. Oh.
So I first came across you Dancing with the Stars. I think my hip hop moves were a little bit better than yours, but we had a lot of fun. You've been a pleasure to serve with. You are a master at being able to disagree without being disagreeable, and you're a good man. I've learned a lot from you, watching you. You're always well read. You're well prepared, and you lead with kindness. So thanks it was a pleasure serving alongside you. Terrible to see you leave, but we'll see each other on the golf course.
You want to go here and watch it? Go on the couch.
Which one is that coming from?
No,
What?
Kim and Julie are funny. Muted.
This one too. That one's us, yeah? Okay, so we all set. All right, I'm going to turn to town administration before your comments.
Thank you. On behalf of town administration, I know Ed's going to say a few words too,
Thanks for
but
catching that.
on behalf of all of us at town administration, from the department heads to the division heads to the employees, we can't thank you enough, Lionel, for your leadership, your guidance, your suggestions, and certainly, as the chair said, your willingness to listen. What's so admirable is you always come in with an open mind. You always sit down and ask us to present both sides of an issue, and then you use your best judgment to make the decision that you think is best on behalf of the town. We appreciate that. We've appreciated your support. You've always got kind words for all of us. And we know how difficult these jobs can be we don't know, we're not elected. But we can imagine how difficult it is for all of you to be elected officials, especially over the last few years. There's been so many things, additional pressures and additional challenges. So we just really want to thank you. You've just been a tremendous, tremendous asset to this organization, to the town, and most certainly to all of us. And I know Ed wants to say a few words.
Lionel, my friend, it's been a great 6 years. It's been a pleasure to work with you. And I want to thank you for being a staunch supporter of town administration, because anytime an issue of some magnitude bubbled up, you were always there to listen, made yourself available, listened to the pros and cons, and made an educated decision on matters that pertain not only to the good of the town, but to the residents of our community. So for that, I am thankful. I want to wish you the best. I look forward to meeting from time to time again, to have a few cool ones and to talk about the news of the day. So I want to thank you for being there.
Thank you.
Yep. I think you know the drill, so I don't have to explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. Doreen Goodrich. I had the privilege and honor of serving with Lionel for 5 of his 6 years on the board, and you captured everything perfectly. But I will just add, Lionel ran for all the right reasons, and that makes a difference. When you truly care about the town that you live in and you want to make a difference, your heart is in it every day. Those difficult votes become easy. The research becomes easy. The conversation's not necessarily easy. Lionel and I didn't agree on everything, but I have so much respect for him because he did the right thing every day. He did what the constituents wanted him to do. He did what he believed in because he truly loves the town of Auburn. I didn't just have a fellow board member for 5 years on the board, but my husband and I have made a lifelong friend, and we wish you all the best in whatever you do next.
Thank you.
Do you have something that
Yeah,
indicated?
if people can indulge me for a few minutes. I wrote it down because I get emotional on things like this. It's been my pleasure to serve this town that I was raised in and have lived in all my life. Auburn has always been a big town with a small community feel. We are blessed with our local businesses who, since I was a kid, have been incredibly generous for sponsorships, programs, facilities, and fundraisers. Our teachers and coaches are so dedicated, and it reflects on the success of so many students whom I've watched go on to all walks of life. I love going on LinkedIn and just browse the many successes of not only my high school classmates, but kids that I have coached and watched grow up in Auburn. Parents and teachers and coaches in this town should be so proud. Speaking of parents, our community is so blessed to have so many volunteers and supporters of youth programs. That is a great sign of our past and of our future. Our police department is not only top-notch in protecting our town, but we are so fortunate at how much they involve themselves in supporting our community events. As a society, we need to get back to respecting not only our town's police, but all law enforcement. Thank you. Having been a call firefighter in town for several years, I can tell you firsthand how well-trained, dedicated, and respected by neighboring communities our fire service is. I want to thank all past and present brothers and sisters from the Auburn Fire Service. Because of our town residents and businesses' cooperation, whenever asked by town management for support to purchase equipment and fund programs, I feel that our police, fire, highway, health, and all departments are among the best in Massachusetts. And I truly believe that, and I tell a lot of people that when I'm out of the town. I realize no one wants to pay any more taxes than they have to, but in Auburn, you can be sure that our management and services are efficiently and aggressively pinching every penny they can to maximize our budget. I have been so impressed with how many applications for grants have come before us from all levels in this town, and grant applications are not an easy task. I don't want to exclude my thanks to any departments, so I thank all departments for their efforts to go out and find as much free money as possible. From my first days as a selectman, which were not easy ones, with the passing of Roger Belluma and the tragedy of Ron Tarantino, Julie has been absolutely inclusive and incredible with explaining what was happening and what to expect. Julie, I thank you for the incredible job you have done with our town and how you've kept the select board in the know with all major situations. It has truly been a pleasure to work with you over these past 6 years. Ed, again, like Julie, has not only done an incredible job for the town, but has been an irreplaceable resource for the select board. I've always been impressed with how you're able to juggle so many tasks and be good at all of them. Thank you so much, Ed. Sharon, as I've said before, you amaze me with your thoroughness and accuracy. The town and the select board are so lucky to have you. So as to not exclude any one person, I'll say to the select board support team, thank you so much for preparing all that we need and making our job so much easier with your thoroughness. Your smiling faces and friendships will make for great memories for me. To past board members, Denise, Ken, and Doreen, I thank you so much for your dedication to our town and the wisdom and guidance that you have shown me over the last 6 years. Sarah, we haven't gotten to work together very long, but I thank you for your dedication and the manner that you've conducted yourself. I know you'll do a great job for as long as you wish to be on this select board. Scott, thank you for your great heart and dedication to all that you and your family do for our town. I wouldn't expect anything less, as some of my great personal memories were being taught by and directed by your mom and dad. Great foundations support great structures. Dan, you're a good soul, and the town needs more people like yourself that are willing to donate so much of their personal time. We may be 50-50 in agreements, in the agreement category, but hopefully from one man to another, we're still 100% in the respect category. Tristan, from the minute we met, holding signs, running against each other, I knew we would be forever friends. I'm glad you persisted and ran again. It has been a pleasure serving on the board with you. I know you will do great things, and I look forward to watching that and helping you in any way I can. To my wonderful daughters, Nikki and Lindsay, my family, and all who are close to me, I thank you for your sacrifices and allowing me to not only serve on this board for 6 years, but through all of the boards, volunteering, coaching, and meetings over the past 30 years. It truly is a family sacrifice, and I am truly blessed to have had the support from you all the way. I love you. Thank you to all families of people I've talked about here, as well as all volunteers. And lastly, thank you to my friends and all residents in Auburn, especially the ones that voted their confidence in me to help guide in decisions that make this town as great as it is.
Always have a handkerchief for these such events. Mr. Chairman, if I could, I was waiting, I didn't want to be the first, but I'm happy to be the last if that is the case, to congratulate Mr. Berthium on 6 years of service to the community, my appreciation for his service, and my best wishes for the next many years of his life. And we hope that we will see you like we get to see Mrs. Goodrich from time to time. We hope that you'll continue to weigh in and offer your guidance as appropriate. So thank you, best wishes, and Godspeed.
Thank you, Dan.
If you wanted to hold, there were still some chairs.
Oh, sure, yeah. For everyone sitting in the back, there are a couple of seats up front. Yeah. And before we move on, I'll just remind you, Mr. Berthing, that there are seats open for town meeting.
I did say 30 years, right?
I'll hug you after the meeting. So if there's nothing else left, other comments, move on. We have gift acceptances in accordance with Mass General Law. We have $20 from the Firefighters Association.
Motion to accept with gratitude.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. No proclamations or recognitions. Under town manager items, we have a grant. Vote to authorize, accept, and expend from the Stanton Foundation a grant of up to $32,000 for a police K-9 program. I'll turn it over to the town manager.
Through the chair, thank you. It's my pleasure to ask Lieutenant Scott Mills to come up and speak about this grant. And I just want to say we are so supportive of this. This is a grant from the Stanton Foundation, which, as all of you know, is the foundation that provided the grant for the dog park. Unlike the dog park, this particular grant for the K-9 does not require a match. So I will let Lieutenant speak to this grant, but we're excited at this opportunity.
Thank you. Good evening, through the chair. We are seeking permission, obviously, to apply for the Stanton Foundation grant, and the purpose of that is to reestablish the K-9 program. We've been approximately 5 years now without a K-9 in town, and the need for the K-9 program or a K-9 program hasn't diminished at all. During that time, if anything, it's increased. Over the course of time, it seems like at least twice, possibly 3 or 4 times a week, we're requesting the services of another agency, whether it's a Sunlight town or a state police K-9. So this will reduce that need or reliance on other departments and bring back a service to town that we, as a, the chief and the rest of the command staff feel is a very valuable service for not only the department, but for the community.
Members have any questions or comments?
I just have one. I did get the budget, and that was appreciated. And I have every intention of voting for it, because I think it's a wonderful idea, but can you just walk me through who will do this? Because I know Officer, it's an L name?
Lundgren?
Lundgren. I was going for Lombardi, so I'm glad you filled that in. I know he did it for many years in the town, so this is a specialized service. How will this person be selected, and what is the process, just for people at home wondering what's the process?
So we had a command staff meeting last Tuesday, and we had already previously solicited interest from the patrol officers, and at a unanimous vote of the command staff, we actually selected David Lundgren, who's the son of Jim.
Okay.
Jim was a canine handler for in excess of 25 years in town. But it was a unanimous vote of the command staff, and from here the process would be hopefully to obtain the grant, the funding from the grant, and then have David and the head trainer for the training academy, the Canine Academy, go and select the proper dog and kind of offer some guidance as far as that goes. And we would like to see the canine program come back to the point where we can bring it into the schools and it can be more of a public thing. We had gotten away a little bit from that, where the dogs were becoming probably less and less people-friendly, I guess, if that's the right way to word it. But they were more, specifically driven. And it was, when I first came to Auburn in 1997, the dogs that Jim had, he could bring them into the station and, you could pet them and not be nervous about that. And I'm not afraid of dogs or anything, but so the whole idea is just to make it a little bit more people-friendly while still serving the purpose that it needs to. And initially that would be the first part of the program is a 14 to 16-week training program where the dog and the canine team learn patrol and apprehension, tracking, that kind of thing. And then after that, they would go to an 8-week school for narcotics detection. So they would, at that point, be considered dual trained and give us, again, a lot of an asset that's valuable on a variety of fronts. So we think it's an extremely valuable program. And this pays 100% of, as the town manager said, there are no matching funds, there's no in-kind match, there's nothing. It was created by, I believe, the past president of CBS was Mr. Stanton. So it's a great program. A lot of local departments have utilized the program as well to reinstitute their canine program. So it seemed like a pretty decent idea to us.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize, accept, and expend Stanton Foundation grant funds up to $32,000 for a police canine program.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have a request, board to vote to approve the intermunicipal agreement with Auburn, Charlton, Oxford, Southbridge for the Central Massachusetts Veterans Services District. With that, I'll turn it over to the town manager.
Great, thank you very much. As many of you know, because you've voted on it before, we have an intermunicipal agreement, which under Mass General Law requires a vote of the Board of Selectmen to enter into. We've had 2 previous to this one, and we have a regional veterans district with the 4 communities, Auburn, Charlton, Southbridge, and Oxford. And we are generally approved by the State Department of Veteran Services for a 2-year period. So every 2 years, we have to reapply for the designation. So we have the application ready to go. Our designation right now is good through June 30th, but we wanted to give the boards plenty of time. We need all 4 boards and all 4 communities to vote to authorize it. The IMA that is before you, the intermunicipal agreement, I only changed it slightly. We have had, I should back up, we have a lot of board meetings of the Veterans District, and it's the town managers of each of those communities. And we met and went through all of this. I've also run it by the contact person at the state just to make sure we had everything in there. Basically, the IMA just outlines what the staffing will be, and the staffing has not changed. We have a director in Southbridge. We have a part-time veterans agent here in Auburn and a part-time veterans agent here in Oxford. And as you know, unfortunately, our veterans agent died unexpectedly in February, and we are thrilled that last week, our new veterans agent started, Eric Reynolds, and he's here 2 days a week, and he was able to participate in our first meeting. So I'm seeking your vote tonight for the IMA, and then each community, I think some are taking their votes this week and some will take it next week. Once you take your vote, we'll put the application into the state. We don't anticipate any changes, any problems, it's just a formality.
Members have any questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement. So Mr. Brown's making that motion. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Vote to accept and expend the Winter Recovery Assistance Program, or RAP, funding from Mass DOT in the amount of $323,649.73. Again, I'll turn it over to the town manager.
Great, thank you. We're very excited about this. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts just announced another round of this program, which is the Winter Recovery Assistance Program, affectionately known as RAP. And it is additional monies that the state makes available on a formula base to each community. So this is the amount that the town would be receiving, over $323,000. And it is for certain expenditures on roadways that were impacted by the terrible winter that we had. The last time the state made these funds available was FY15, so it's been quite a few years since these funds came available to us. And the state is in the process of putting together the agreement between us and the state to actually get the funds. It's a reimbursement basis, so anything we spend on any eligible activities, we would submit to the state and they would reimburse. It's for things like sidewalks, stormwater, road repair, striping, paving, things like that. So it's a great amount of money. We're thrilled to have this. So we're looking ahead of time. We know the agreement will be coming, but we just found out about this the other day. So we just want your authorization to expend and accept the monies when they do come to us.
Any questions or comments from board members? Is there a motion to accept and expend the Winter Recovery Assistance Program?
I'll make a motion to accept and expend the Winter Recovery Assistance Program funding from Mass DOT in the amount of $323,649.73.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. And last under manager items, a request for approval of $81,065 from ARPA funds for a biohazard waste sterilization system.
Great, thank you. I'd like to invite up Deputy Chief Johnson to speak to this. And I will tell you, I asked him, what should we call this? It's a piece of equipment. And he said a biohazardous waste sterilization system. And I said, I thought it was a needle disposal system. And he goes, that's it, that's what it is. So we are here to talk about the needle disposal system and why we think that this is a very valuable, important expenditure to make with ARPA funds.
Good evening, through the chair. To give you a little history, the town for a while had a needle disposal program. Some of the funding has dried up on that. It was placed at CVS. The box was, or the drop-off box was taken away probably almost 2 years ago at this point. This is something that the residents have come to the fire station for many years asking where can we dispose of our needles, and it's a logical place. We give out meds all the time. So they come and they've been complaining that they have nowhere to go with these needles. And what we recommend, and we hate to do it, but we recommend putting them in a laundry detergent box and then you put them in the trash. But this system here will allow us to reestablish that needle disposal program. And not only does this thing take needles, it also takes other biohazardous waste. So occasionally when we're on a fire scene, emergency medical scene, we can take that back, and instead of having to try to find a way to get rid of that, we can actually dispose of it ourselves. And the way this machine works is you put the needles in, and it grinds everything up. It sterilizes it, turns it into a powder, and then it goes into its own trash bag, and then it can be thrown away in the normal trash. So the cost of this program is $81,000, is what we're asking for, is $81,000. And that's the cost of the machine plus the service agreement for the total of 5 years, where we can use the ARPA funds till 2026. That's ultimately what the cost is of it.
Through the chair, if I may add one more piece. Thank you so much. The cost this year alone is over $17,000 for the disposal. So we anticipate those costs are going to do nothing but go up. So based on that, if you were to look at a 10-year lifespan of this, and I don't have my notes,
Yeah.
so forgive me, but it would be
60.
$170,000.
Yeah,
I say it would be
savings.
about $62,000 over a 10-year period. And that's assuming present-day value of a vendor contract at $17,000, which again, the way it's been going, we expect those costs to go up. They've gone up considerably, not just here, but everywhere. So I think the significant savings to the town will well exceed the amount that we're actually asking for in ARPA funds.
This also allows, like the school nurses, they'll be able to use this machine, give us the needles, and we'll be able to take it, so they don't have to pay to get rid of it as well.
Board members, yep.
So besides, so the machine would be at the fire station,
Correct.
and then are there other disposal points that, like, you know, CVS used to have a disposal point? Would the town hall have a biohazard or needle receptacle, or should everyone be going directly to the fire station?
Right now, we're still going to work with the Board of Health, which we've been working strongly with them on this whole program. But as far as setting it up right now, we'd have it set up during business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 at the fire station. That way there. We do want this for town residents. We're not looking for everyone to bring their needles into town. So the secretary would be able to verify that you live in Auburn, just show an ID, and then we take your needles, and that would be, but we can certainly look at potential placing a box at town hall, but we'd work with the Board of Health on that.
Thank you.
Anything else from board members? I had a quick question. So would there be any potential to help out other communities that might have needle drop boxes, and they may want to use this as well if they don't have one of their own? Is there any potential there to reach out to surrounding communities?
That's something that we can look into further with the Board of Health.
For a fee, of course.
Yes. That's right. Yeah, offset that cost. Great. Well, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to approve $81,065 in ARPA funds for a biohazard waste sterilization system?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, under tabled items, we have none, and select board member items. We have a discussion and potential vote to appoint the new town manager effective upon the retirement of the current town manager in early 2023. This was introduced by Mr. Berthium. So again, I just want to reiterate how we're going to do this. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Berthium. It's his item. Allow him to speak on it. Then we'll go through the board. I'll turn to town administration for their comments. I'm sure they'll have some. And then I'll open it up to the public and ask you to come up to the podium to give yours. We'll ask for your name and address, and typically about 3 minutes. There are a lot of people. I imagine there's going to be a lot of people that want to make comments, so I'm just going to ask you to try to keep it to 3 minutes. And with that, I'll turn it to Mr. Berthium.
Thank you. So I want to start out saying that Ed has been with the town for 27 plus years, and our town is in a wonderful position. Ed has worn multiple hats, many simultaneously: assistant town manager, chief financial officer, town accountant, and as CFO is the department head overseeing the town's accounting office, treasurer and collector's office, and assessor's office. He has also twice served periods as interim town administrator. Auburn continues to have strong budgetary performance results and maintains a strong fund balance, which has been recognized through our very positive independent audit results. The town has continued to have steady increases in all reserve and account balances. Town administration's multi-year commitment to increase free cash, excess levy, the stabilization fund, and reserves continued again this year, this past year, while the fiscal year 22 budget remained under Proposition 2.5 limits. As Ed showed last week at our town meeting, over the past 12 years, by budgeting well under Proposition 2.5 levy limits and not taxing to the maximum allowed, town administration has saved taxpayers of this community about $50 million since 2010. Under his watch, the town has increased free cash, increased reserves, established the other post-employment benefits trust fund known as OPEB. The town has received 2 bond rating upgrades and continued its AA plus rating from Standard & Poor's at its rating in September, which is one step from the highest rating that a municipality can receive. This enables the town to borrow at much reduced interest rates. And despite the pandemic, the town has kept its reserve levels consistent with the benchmark recommended by the bond rating agencies. The rating from Standard & Poor's, as well as a AA2 rating from Moody's Investor Services, reflects the town's strong management practices. Increased reserves, adoption and implementation of these key financial policies. 5-year budget forecasts and multi-year capital projections, as well as implementing of reforms with an emphasis on fiscal discipline. One of the criteria the bond agencies review is town management. They want to see stability. Losing a town manager, as well as an assistant town manager, CFO, at one time could be a negative mark or comment in this category of the bond rating. Ed was instrumental in drafting the written financial policies adopted by the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. Town administration continues to adhere to our approved financial policies that enable us to build our reserves, fund many capital needs without borrowing, and address long-term pension and healthcare liabilities while providing a framework for budgeting. Our and Ed's financial policies and strategies have enabled the town to continue to purchase smaller capital items rather than borrow funds in order to manage debt service levels. Implementation of these financial policies, which have been adopted by the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee, is a cornerstone of our fiscal stability and enables the town to maintain its strong bond rating and remain in a strong financial position. Ed prepares a 5-year capital improvement plan annually. He prepares a 5-year budget forecast annually. He identifies funding to implement the 5-year facility management plan. He prepares an annual operating budget, which is conservative-minded, always balanced, and never at or exceeds Proposition 2.5 levels. He utilizes creative financing to facilitate capital needs, operational needs, unanticipated needs, and unanticipated expenditures. He works through health insurance audits resulting in savings. He has financially managed and oversaw over 300 grants since 2011. With Julie, Ed participates in negotiations with all municipal collective bargaining contracts, which include cost analysis of each proposal. Since 2011, he has participated in negotiations for 34 collective bargaining contracts, currently participating in the collective bargaining for 9 collective bargaining contracts. He manages the Health Insurance Trust Fund, the OPEB Trust Fund. These are not accomplishments that someone just walks into and takes over in just a few months. You can see from many of the duties and accomplishments that I have spoken about that consistency and smooth continuation is crucial for our transition of Julie's retirement. Our strength with these accomplishments can be continued, but will be learned over time. In knowing that we, as a board, have an obligation to do what is best for our town, many of my friends and constituents voted us in to make sure of that. What I feel is best for our town is to keep a well-oiled machine running without skipping a beat. There is a difference between going out and looking for a suitable candidate because we don't have one versus having a suitable and deserving replacement that we can promote from within. It is an internal promotion of our Assistant Town Manager, CFO, who has worked in the town of Auburn for over 27 years. This current select board is the best and most qualified to make a decision of this magnitude. We have all had the experience of working with Ed and knowing just how competent, knowledgeable, successful, and deserving he is of this promotion. We have the ability tonight to show our confidence in Ed, to continue the great job that Julie, Ed, and our town departments have done over the years for the next few years. We have the ability to hand off to the next select board the time to support Ed in seeking a suitable candidate for an assistant town manager position, who will then have a few years to work under and learn from Ed, as he has from Julie, all the duties and responsibilities of the town manager. In Ed, we would also be retaining the person that is currently nurturing the recently hired town accountant to keep that transition as seamless and successful as it has been so far. I believe in my mind and my heart that all the knowledge of our town and experience that Ed brings to us from his CFO as well as assistant town manager position to make Julie's exit seamless could not be replaced better by anyone else. I have a feeling that most of you also feel that Ed is without a doubt the most qualified, in the know, up-to-date person to take our town through this transition. As our school committee just overwhelmingly agreed, why go out and reinvent the wheel when we already have a smooth running one? I feel we as a board, knowing that Ed is extremely qualified, would be doing Auburn an injustice by risking losing our assistant town manager, CFO, and possibly other department leaders, while at the same time losing our town manager. I ask all of you to show Ed the confidence tonight that you feel he will be an excellent successor to Julie and carry this town smoothly through this ongoing transition by voting tonight to appoint Ed Kazanovich as Auburn's next town manager, effective upon Julie's exit. So I will make that in the form of a motion. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Ed Kazanovich, Assistant Town Manager / CFO, as Town Manager, effective upon the retirement of the current Town Manager in early 2023, per Section 3.05 of the Town Charter.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded for discussion. Do other board members have comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we listen to the audience before board members speak. That way we can listen and then see what we come up with at the end.
I'd rather have, at least give some members the opportunity to speak first and then turn it over to town administration before opening it up to the public. I'll obviously come back to the board for comments after the public, but I saw Vice Chair indicated he wanted to talk.
Thank you for your comments and for your motion, Mr. Berthium. That's a quarter century worth of service to the town that you've given to the town, Ed. That's pretty impressive. And I know a lot of you want to speak on this matter. So I wanted to, well, first of all, bear with me. I hate reading, but I wanted to get all my thoughts out. So I wanted to talk about my thoughts on this matter in a little bit of a different light, really from a human perspective, if you will. As a young lawyer, I learned long ago that while I may use my legal training to make decisions, to appear in court and be the one who signs closing documents for buyers and sellers, it's my staff who makes the machine move. They're the secret ingredient to success, if you will. I often tell people that my paralegal, Gracia, she's the smartest person in my office, and that's a fact. Tim, who handles my seller files, he's been with me 13 years, and his dedication to our team is second to none. I would stand in front of a train for that man, and I'm sure he'd do the same for me. My point is that my entire staff is, in my mind, the best staff in the world. And not only do I remind myself of that frequently, I remind them. Leadership has nothing to do with any single one person. It's a complete team effort. So we as selectmen, we speak to the residents, we work with town administration, and we sit down here every 2 weeks to make some votes. It's really the town administration, the department heads, and all the town employees that work tirelessly in between those meetings to make our community run. Julie, Ed, Steve Coleman, Todd Lemon, Darlene Coyle, Joanna Paquin, Mike Marino, along with all the division heads, are the town's secret ingredient to success. For me, those lessons in leadership I learned long ago ring true in this instant matter before us here today. When we sit up here and we talk about whether or not to look for an outside hire, we're inevitably entering into discussions on how much we value not only Ed, but the entire administration and all who are on the same team with us. We impact their morale when we say certain negative comments. They're working hard for our community. I see that type of discussion as a vote of no confidence and a missed opportunity to be the leaders that we were truly here and elected to be. Advocacy, of course, is on behalf of town residents, does require that we ask difficult questions of town government. We object where is needed, but that needs to be balanced with appreciation and support for our team that shares our goals for this town. This vote tonight here for me is the obvious right thing to do, and it shows our town government and its workers that hard work is rewarded, that they have our appreciation, and most importantly, they have our support. In my opinion, Ed is the obvious choice to succeed Julie as town manager. Not only does he far and away surpass all qualifications needed, he's also shown throughout the years he is dedicated and invested to the greater good of our community. Ed also has the support of the many of the department heads that I just referenced, and will be able to seamlessly hit the ground running, as Lionel had just said. Lastly, I have paid attention to those that feel a nationwide search should be conducted. I understand their position, I appreciate their position, and under many fact patterns, a national search would be prudent. However, in this case, we have the clear and obvious choice already before us. Jessie Harrington's here tonight. I'm going to steal her words when appointing Beth Chamberlain to superintendent. I'm a sports analogy guy. Why look for a shooter when you have Larry Bird on the bench? So again, I'm here. I support Ed for this vote. And with that, I'll yield back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do other board members want to comment before I turn it over to town administration? All right, seeing none, I want to read off something too. And like the vice chair, anyone who's seen me before knows that I don't like to read and give long speeches, but this one, I think, required it. The town manager is the only employee that is hired by the Board of Selectmen. As a result of that, and the powers granted in the charter to the town manager, this is one of, if not the most important decisions that the board will make. Because of that, this is something that I have not taken lightly. Anyone who has talked to me in the last 2 weeks knows that I've been considering this from every possible perspective and angle. There's no other item that has come before us in the last 5 years that I've been on this board that I've devoted such considerable amount of time and thought to. I'll begin my comments by discussing my thoughts on Ed Kasanovich and his performance as assistant town manager and town CFO, at least from my experience. And in addition to my own experience, the observations others have made. I've reached out to 6 former selectmen and discussed his performance, his strengths, his weaknesses, and his current position with each of them. The overwhelming opinion, and by overwhelming, I mean the unanimous opinion from every former board member that I talked to, is that he is the epitome of professionalism and knowledge in municipal government. In addition to former selectmen, members of various committees and boards, both past and present, residents, town meeting members, members of the Chamber of Commerce, have reached out to me over the past weekend to praise Ed's work ethic and his work for the town over the years. Many of his skills were discussed, but the 2 most commonly cited were his ability to explain complex financial matters in easy to understand language, as well as his deep understanding of municipal government in general. Many noted how his contributions to town meeting have significantly sped up the process. His presentations give town meeting members a comprehensive and understanding view of the town's financial situation, which in turn allows us to spend less time answering questions. The former town moderator noted that town meetings were not uncommon to go on for 3 nights prior to Ed's arrival. In my own experience as a newly elected member 5 years ago, I found him to be a tremendous asset. He was always willing to schedule meetings to explain anything that I needed help with. As I spent my first 4 years on the board still attending UMass, Ed made himself available through email or phone conversations that we were able to have between my classes or when we could otherwise accommodate my schedule. Long before the COVID-19 pandemic, he utilized any means at his disposal to ensure that I had the tools necessary to make well-informed decisions for the residents of the community we served. After giving the idea serious consideration, I believe that if this board were to accept applications for this position, either in-house or outside of the town, we would likely only be wasting our time, the other applicants' time, and the taxpayers' money to arrive back at the conclusion that Ed Kasanovich is the right choice for Auburn. Additionally, Ed has the respect and support of many of the department heads and town employees who have worked with him over the years. While I was disappointed to hear that some employees felt the need to suggest that they would leave Auburn if Ed were not the choice of the board, and I don't think that there was an intent to bully the select board into this decision, this highlights Ed Kasanovich as their pick and their loyalty to him. Since becoming chair, I've only worked with Ed more closely. I regularly meet with him and Julie when setting the board's agenda, and while serving on the tax classification subcommittee with Vice Chair Wren, we could not have asked for a more responsive and knowledgeable CFO. He attended more than half of our meetings with us and helped us struggle to find a comprehensive plan for an incredibly complex issue. Whether or not we succeeded, I'll leave that up to the board. I also want to use this time to thank Ed for inviting me to speak with him last week and again over the weekend. I gained a lot from those opportunities to speak to him, and I got a better idea of what his administration could potentially look like. With all that said, nevertheless, I have some concerns that I want to express tonight. None of these concerns have anything to do with Ed Kasanovich or his qualifications, but were rather related to timing. This change will represent the first time that the select board will choose a new town manager under the 2009 charter. The town manager is the only position that is hired by the select board. As a result, I'm afraid of setting a precedent that the board should automatically hire the assistant town manager. And to this, I sincerely hope that future boards will look back to this and understand that this was a case where the assistant was more than qualified than even acting town managers in other towns around the state. I also hope that future boards will exercise their authority over the hiring of the assistant town manager. Our charter gives the town manager the ability to hire the assistant, but the select board has the final determination. Future boards need to express the qualities that they want to see in the next assistant town manager, and they must convey these to the acting town manager during their search. Their involvement needs to be throughout the process, and they should not wait for an invitation to get involved. In my case, I hope to see a candidate that can be invested and that is motivated, that we can be invested in, and that is motivated to devote many future years to Auburn. Next, I've also been concerned with the speed at which we've moved. While none of us seriously can stand up here and deny any of Ed's qualifications, I don't believe that this decision should be made one meeting after the current town manager's public announcement that she will not seek to renew her contract. This, coupled with the timing of the appointment, has caused me a great deal of concern. The select board is not in the same position as a school committee where the vacancy was immediate and had to be filled. We have 9 months before we will not have a town manager. And while I understand the desire to get Mr. Kasanovich up to speed in order to make the transition as seamless as possible, I fail to see the need for immediate action. If anything, Ed's experience over the years and his knowledge of the town of Auburn and its department heads means that he would need less transition time than anyone else that you could possibly imagine the job. This is our last regularly scheduled meeting before the election. And I want to make it clear that after working with Mr. Berthium for 5 years, I have the utmost respect and admiration for him. He's one of the most honorable and trustworthy people that I served with on this board or have served with on this board. And he's been a friend of me for the last 5 years, both in and out of meetings. I would never believe for a second that he had any ill intent on his part when he asked to add this item to the agenda tonight, as has been suggested by some. As he stated, as a member of this board, he was elected to do a job, and that is what he's doing. He has worked with Ed for 6 years, and as the second longest serving member of this board, he knows him better than anyone else who would be newly elected. Next week, however, on the flip side of that coin, is that he will not be the person working with Mr. Kasanovich for the next 3 years. Now, any member may resign or lose an election, but in this case, with a vote of such importance, I think we have to consider the perception of taking this action before a member will be replaced. My fear is that Ed will take over as town manager, but that residents may view this in a negative light, with the board at the last minute before a new member could take seat and have a say. This wouldn't be fair to Mr. Kasanovich at all and would undermine his experience and qualifications and distract from those. I'm afraid members of the public will ignore that and jump to their own conclusions. This would likely damage some of the public support that I believe he is entitled to on day one when taking office. I would have supported tabling this discussion and continuing it at our next meeting or several meetings, and in doing so, we'd all be able to have a formal public interview with Mr. Kasanovich. The board could take time to do its due diligence. We could ask Mr. Kasanovich of his goals in the position, his strengths, his weaknesses, and his plan for the assistant town manager. Some of these are topics that I discussed with Mr. Kasanovich privately, and I found them to be really rewarding. But the public has not had the opportunity to hear that, and fellow board members, to my knowledge, may not have heard that either. I think it would be beneficial to everyone involved to follow that course. However, in closing, if it's the board wished to move on this item tonight, I would not stand between us and the most qualified candidate we could ever hope to find. I want Ed to be the next town manager, and if the majority of the board sees fit to have that vote tonight, I'll gladly support Mr. Kasanovich as the next town manager for Auburn. Thank you. With that, turn it over to town administration.
Thank you. As you know, I'm going to speak first and I'm going to turn it to Ed because it really is, this vote is all about Ed. As you all know, I've worked with Ed for the last over 11 years since I was appointed in January of 2011. And just so I can be brief so everyone else here can have the opportunity to speak, I just want to sum up his performance, and most of you don't need to hear me say this. I say it all the time. We would not be where we are today as a community if it wasn't for all of our department heads, and in specific, the partnership that I have with Ed to get things done here. So I just want to sum up just a few things that I think it's really important for people to remember before they take this vote. Ed is a consummate professional. He's a brilliant CFO. He's a creative thinker. He's a problem solver. He's an exceptional assistant town manager. He's a tremendous professional colleague, and he's an experienced, dedicated public servant. I have been here for 11 and a half years. I hope you respect my opinion on this as well. I feel and have full confidence that Ed could succeed me in this position as this town's next town manager. I think he will be an asset to this community. I think he'll continue the good work that our entire team has done. And I believe myself that he has really been in an interview for the last 27 years. You've all known him for 27 years. You've seen what he's done. You've seen the proof of it. You saw it recently at the town meeting. You can see where we are financially. I don't need to say anything more. I think you all see what Ed does. So I thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to turn it to him.
Excuse me. Thank you, Julie. And Lionel, I may be looking for that roll of paper towels because I may be wilting up before I'm finished, but thank you. And to my beautiful family, they surprised me. My wife and my two daughters are here, so thank you for supporting me as well. I'd like to touch upon the highlights and my accomplishments as a 38-year municipal employee. And certainly I'm hoping to define why I believe I'm the person for the job. I think my history will support that. And I feel that I am qualified, and I'd be looking for each and every one of your votes of support tonight, if it should be voted. I don't want to sound redundant because I know a lot of what Lionel shared with you tonight. I was not privy, but I do want to highlight the fact that I have been in government for a 38-year period. My last 27 years were with the town of Auburn. I was hired in 1995 and came on board as town accountant. And prior to that, I worked 11 years as the assistant city auditor in the city of Lowell. The Board of Selectmen did appoint me as acting town administrator on 2 occasions, once for a 6-month period, with the departure of former town administrator Chris Ratz, and they appointed me as acting with the departure of Julie's predecessor. So I'm not going to touch upon the financial aspects of actually the stalwart of my area of expertise is in finance. I think Lionel, thank you. I think you captured all that. And I would like to thank all the board members for their comments prior to me speaking. But I would like to touch upon some of the areas that I feel as though I've made a difference in. And some of those accomplishments hopefully will help you understand that I am more involved in just the day-to-day finances of the town. So on the economic development front, and my history goes way back, I felt as though I was instrumental in the creation of Route 20 Industrial Park. We received a $1 million PWED grant. And so that was roughly a 5-year project that I was involved in from day one, and very proud of the economic growth and development that has brought to the town. I was instrumental in the construction of the Auburn High School and the Auburn Middle School and the relocation of Yongshing as part of that project. That involved a number of meetings and negotiation in terms of relocation of an existing business, land acquisition costs, and actually the financing of not only the school construction, but the relocation expenses as well. I'm proud of the fact that I was involved in the Veterans Memorial Corridor project. That was roughly a $6 million project that created the five parks that are currently on the corridor, and it continues to bring in veterans from all over the country, even today, to visit our beautiful parks. Was very involved in the creation of the Pappas Recreational Complex. We, along with Mr. Turco, were involved with discussions with Dr. Arthur and Martha Pappas that led to a $1 million donation. Without that project would not have been possible. That allowed us to defer the debt and interest payments on that project for a period of 3 years, while we utilized a portion of the $1 million on an annual basis to fund that project. That is something that I know Auburn is very proud of. That is a beautiful park, and we continue to utilize that not only on a daily basis, but to host and have functions at that park that draw thousands of people to our community. I'm grateful in helping create the Auburn High School Gymnasium Trust. That was a $500,000 donation that we use on an annual basis to fund costs that allow us to use the facilities at the Auburn High School Gymnasium, weight room, and things of that nature. It's allowed to be used by our community free of charge, so that's something we're very proud of. I'm involved with Julie. I see Mr. Coyle is here. Thank you for coming out, Billy. I appreciate that. The completion of the Auburn Street project. And that's a beautiful gateway to town right now. And we're very proud of the work and the effort that was put in by the entire town administration in getting that project accomplished. Was responsible for the Auburn Roadway Reconstruction funding. We currently fund about $535,000 annually towards our road program, in addition to the Chapter 90 monies that we receive. That has gone a long way in upgrading our roadway system and allows us to reconstruct our roads on a 20-year cycle. So that's something that we're proud of. And certainly a project that is in the planning, but it hasn't commenced yet, is, I'm looking forward, that we worked hard at, is the library expansion and pedestrian bridge project. We were able to bring that to a voted town meeting without relying on any tax levy money to get that project completed. So that's something very proud of. On the environmental front, was involved in the Mass 10 redevelopment of that site when I first came on board. Worked with Galaxy Development, DEP, and GZA on coming up for a contract for closure plan that allowed us to clean up that site and allowed for the redevelopment and economic growth that you currently see there today. have been involved post-closure with Auburn landfill. We worked with Kleinfelder on an annual basis for post-closure monitoring to make sure that the water quality and the standards are improving on an annual basis. Was responsible for the cleanup down at the highway department that included the Ryder property. There was contamination down there as a result of our fuel tanks that were formerly at the Auburn Highway Department. That site, I believe, was recently released because we have met the standards for, as defined by DEP. And certainly, we were able to sell a piece of town-owned property on Southbridge Street, the Scavone property, which we took by through tax foreclosure. We put that property out for sale. We cleaned up the property, and now that is being occupied by a business owner and back on the tax rolls again. In terms of labor negotiations, as Lionel had indicated, we successfully negotiated roughly 35 union contracts over the last 9 years. I can tell you that that is a very time-consuming process. From start to finish, it probably takes the better of a year and a half to complete the entire cycle. It involves preparation of timesheets to identify total package costs that we bring before the board in your consideration for approval. We continue on the labor front. We continue dealing with ongoing personnel issues and dealing with human resource management items on a day-to-day basis. I can't tell you how much of that really consumes our time on an annual basis. Some other notables that I'd like to bring to the attention of the board, something that I'm very proud of and was touched upon earlier, the creation, the adoption of the financial policies. I think that has really led to us being a stable community. I'm proud of the fact that we got bond rating upgrades that translates to taxpayer savings as a result of incurring debt at lower interest cost. When we first got our upgrade, we refunded the high school debt. And as a result of refunding that debt, we refinanced it at a lower tax rate. We saved the taxpayers of the community in excess of $3 million. So that's a good thing, and we continue to look at creative ways to reduce those costs as we move forward. I can tell you when I first came here, we had a negative free cash position. The town was using free cash and overlay surplus as a funding source in the operating budget. We quickly put that practice to a stop. And I can tell you that we went from negative free cash to a historic high. A certification as of June 30, 2021 was $17.4 million. So that I am very proud of. And when we're looking at our level of reserves, our assigned fund balance is currently at 34% of general fund operating revenue. I can tell you that level of reserve is historic. I can tell you that the rating agencies use Auburn as a model for other communities to follow as a result of the commitment we made in getting those reserves to where they are today. I'm proud of the fact that we minimally utilized Proposition 2.5 over the last 12 years. We haven't taxed the 2.5. That's led to excess levy of $8.5 million. And once again, I know it's redundant, but I think it's very important to note that it's saved the taxpayers of this community roughly $50 million over that period of time. I'm proud of the fact that we utilize 1/10 of Prop 2.5 on an annual basis towards our 5-year CIP. We're currently using close to $1.5 million a year of tax levy to fund our CIP. It won't be long if we continue that level of contribution. It won't be long before we're funding all of our CIP needs without any reliance on issuing debt. So that's something I'm very, very proud of. I would like to continue to address our discrepancy in our tax rate. I think we've allowed the board to consider doing that on an annual basis by not taxing to 2.5, using some of that 2.5 buffer as a way to relieve tax burden on the residential tax rate that will allow the board to continue its migration towards a single tax rate. And lastly, I'm proud of the fact that I, along with Julie, and we participate in a quarterly round business table discussion with our business owners. I think it's important to keep them plugged in, and we want to listen to some of the issues and concerns that they are plagued with on a daily basis. So I think that feedback and that discussion is helpful in addressing some of the short and long-term needs of our business community. So with that, once again, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and I'm asking for your support tonight. It'd be very important for me to have your support, and with that, I'll turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so to try to bring some order to the number of people in this room that we're going to want to talk, town manager and I were talking. So again, I'm going to ask everyone to keep their comments to 3 minutes and join us at the podium. So we're going to go with, I think this will make it a little bit easier anyway, elected officials that are in the room first that want to speak. I know there is one member from the library board that I saw and 2 members from the school committee. So I will start with the 2 members from the school committee if they want to come up.
And I don't know how you sleep at night, but I've been on the school committee for 8.5 years, and I've worked with Mr. Kazanovich on several occasions. He's always been knowledgeable, helpful, and professional. He's a team player, and he cares about Auburn. School committee just went through a very similar situation, as was already mentioned, and the timing is the same as this situation. We moved our assistant superintendent, Dr. Chamberlain, from assistant super to interim super, and then just moved her up to the superintendent of Auburn Public Schools. We felt strongly that our district needed consistency in a person who has exhibited commitment to our town. As a committee, we felt it was most important to include our outgoing members who served for 8 and 10 years. Just like Mr. Berthium, our outgoing members were able to work with and witness firsthand how well our assistant superintendent performed. It seemed only fair to both Dr. Chamberlain and the departing members that they played a role in this important new hire. My personal opinion is that you have the best sitting right there, and it would be awful to lose him. So I think tonight is best.
Thank you,
That's all. Thank you.
To the other member of the school committee, if you want to.
George Scobie, 30 Jade Hill Road, 10-year member of the Auburn School Committee. I would echo many of the sentiments that Jesse Harrington has put forth, as well as some of those on the board. Not to start in a negative manner, but my road needs to be fixed, and it's been 16 years, Ed, so I've got to be getting close. The only reason I start with that is because we're not going to satisfy everyone. It's just not going to happen. There are going to be a few people here or there who are rubbed the wrong way when they go to certain offices, certain departments, or they think they're not getting the services that they desire. That being said, I believe that you are satisfying the high 90s anyway, 90 percentile. So for that, I'm grateful, I'm thankful. Like Jesse said, over the past 10 years, we've worked hand in hand with this administration. You've been cordial, collaborative, respectful, always. From the standpoint of the people who work beneath you, as far as I can tell, you're always respectful of them. It's one thing to have a fondness for someone, and it's another thing to have respect for someone. But when you have both, as you do, from the people who work beneath you, the people that work alongside you, and all the committees and boards in town, I mean, that's really something special. To address a couple of the comments I heard on the board, the concern being, you know, we shouldn't be rushing to judgment, and we have 9 months to work, and it's a different situation in the school committee. It's very similar. I mean, and this isn't to disparage anyone at all, but it's very similar. We kind of had a rock star waiting backstage to come out and perform. I have to go there because I can't use the sports analogy again. That one's been used way too many times. But no, we have a rock star backstage. And we've all watched him work. We've seen what good it's done for the town. This town has become a destination for many. And a lot of that has to do with the schools, not to pat ourselves on the back, because this is a team. We all work together. And that's why Auburn is a destination for a lot of people. We are in great shape financially. I won't get into that too much because that's been covered. I mean, I just really see no reason why we need to insult Ed and say, you know what, let's give it a little bit of time. You're 26 or 27 years, that wasn't a good enough interview. So we want to interview some more people, or we want to interview you a little bit further. I don't know what more we can get out of that interview other than to satisfy a small faction of the town who wants that. And I believe after tonight's comments, it'll end up being a very small faction of the town that wants to see any type of an interview. I think 26, 27 years, whatever it was, I think that tells the whole story. As a person, I think you're a great guy. As a professional, I think even better. So I totally support appointing Ed as the new town manager.
Thank you for those comments, George. I appreciate it.
The only other elected official that I think is in the room is from the library board. So I'll ask if you want to come up now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and the Select Board, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I want to acknowledge Selectman Lionel Berthume to express appreciation for your long history of coaching our youth and for your generous public service. Thank you again. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here this evening to request that the Board of Selectmen vote against appointing our Assistant Town Manager to the Town Manager position this evening. While I agree that he's a great professional person, I believe that good governance is characterized by transparency, good faith effort to engage the community, and a clear-cut plan to deliver quality assurance across every department. I moved to Auburn in 2014 to be closer to my brother David, who was dealing with a life-threatening disease and a medical condition until he lost his battle on Christmas of 2016. We spent many hours at Leahy Hospital, where I observed impeccable professionalism in every department, every single department. I conversed with the many staff members to learn what drives such clearly superior patient care. I learned that Leahy uses surveys in all departments to ensure reasonable wait time, clean facilities, and personalized care for every patient and family member. My brother and I had a weekly standing appointment, so I had many experiences to assess the level of employee satisfaction, so many conversations, patient care, and a warm and welcoming environment for all of our families. And we just feel very grateful for that. While David was sick, I did not have time to invest in volunteerism in Auburn. So when he did pass, I felt out of place in my new home community. 2007, 2018 as an intentional effort to engage and to foster relationships. I volunteered with the Auburn Little League, became a full-time foster mom. Dr. Chamberlain is the most popular principal in my house. She was his principal when he lived with me. And I worked with the Auburn Cultural Council and my favorite entity, the Board of Trustees. The reason I really love working with the Board of Trustees is because I look up and respect the members that I work with. You know, every single member of the Board of Trustees that I've worked with, most of whom are older than I am, a few who are younger, Matt Toth, Nan Johnson, Paula Melican, Suzette Dowd, Jennifer Shea's younger than me, provided me with this belonging place. Auburn became a belonging place. Ms. Goodrich, who's in the audience, took the time when I first wanted to run for office to have a conversation with me. I think it was 8 o'clock in the morning at a Dunkin' Donuts, because she cared very much about public service and giving advice to somebody like me who didn't have any experience at that time. I joined the Board of Trustees in 2018-19, and I became concerned as meetings became increasingly tense and members appeared to be uncomfortable to interact after meetings. So I spoke up. I said, what's going on? What is this? I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what was happening. If I walked to my car, somebody that I look up to very much on the board felt uncomfortable to talk to me, and I didn't understand what was happening. So I had to learn to understand what I was seeing in stark contrast to my experience at Leahy. I learned that the Board of Trustees lost its authority with the charter change in 2011. I learned that the BOT was very interested in just reaching out to the community and getting input just around library hours, things related to the outreach.
Mr. Corsi, I know I let George go a little bit over, but
I'm just about done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry. We're very interested in the feedback from the community. So I agree that some departments are impeccably well-run, others are not well-run. So rather than to hasten a vote this evening, I'm requesting that Auburn residents have the opportunity to be informed, to have input, and to be genuinely heard. After all, good governance is best characterized by transparency and a good faith effort to hear constituents and the new brand of Auburn that could pay close attention to quality assurance. The act of listening is healing. The community needs to be heard. Thank you, Mr. Chair, the Select Board, for hearing me this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other elected members in the audience right now, and I'm excluding town meeting members, so you can take offense, but I'll chair. So I'm going to turn to former elected officials now and turn to Doreen Goodrich because your hand must be getting tired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With your permission, I do have just a very brief email to read from a resident who couldn't be here. Sure. Your permission. Okay, thank you. Good evening. I had planned on making remarks in person tonight, but like many, COVID has prevented that. I have lived in the town of Auburn the entire time of Ed Kazanovich's employment. I have served on several town boards during that time. I am an active member of civic organizations in town, a business owner, and a current town meeting member. I offer my strong support in your vote to make Ed Kazanovich town manager. Ed is qualified, experienced, dedicated, and simply put, the right person for the position. I don't believe you will find a stronger candidate with Ed's knowledge of municipal finance. Thank you for your consideration of resident comments before taking tonight's vote. Also, I congratulate Lionel Berthume on his retirement from the board and thank him for his 6 years of exemplary service on the board. Sincerely, Joe Martin, 30 Common Road. And now my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As you know, I did submit professional comments via email to each member regarding the appointment of Ed. Tonight, I want to add a few personal comments. I had the pleasure of meeting Ed many, many years ago while Chris Rass was executive secretary. I went on to serve on a few boards and commissions as a town meeting member and finally a 12-year member of the Board of Selectmen. My interactions with Ed have always been positive. He is supportive, knowledgeable and patient, as well as being one of the kindest people I've had the pleasure to know. Other words that come to mind are honest, trustworthy, and one with the highest level of integrity. Yet, he is funny and can calm the most serious of situations with his humor. You have big shoes to fill tonight, now that Ms. Jacobson has announced her retirement. I will save my comments for her impact on the town for a later time. For tonight, it's all about Ed. I know that sometimes the right decision isn't always the easiest vote. On this vote, I trust you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen, and thank you to Mr. Martin's comments as well.
Okay, I'm going to turn to boards and commission members that are in the audience. So I'm going to start with finance. So if any of the finance committee members want to come up.
Hi, my name is Ann Kavanaugh. I'm Chair of the Finance Committee. I've been on the Finance Committee for about 20 years now, and every meeting I've attended, Ed has been there also. He has consistently been helpful to us, provided us any information we needed. He's very knowledgeable about any aspect of the budget, which is very large. He has his hand on every part of it, so he understands where we are financially. He's also able to look ahead. He does the 5-year plans for the operating budget and for the CIP. So we've been very fortunate to work with Ed, very knowledgeable, very patient with us when we have questions. And we certainly hope he can continue with the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Other members of finance in the audience that want to come up? All right, seeing none. I noticed members of the planning board are also in the audience.
Steve Chambers, 61 Bancroft. I wasn't planning on speaking. I'm against appointments, but understanding that the rules are what they are, I did look at it. Ed, I think you're greatly qualified. And I find myself in the minority now looking, because this room hasn't been full in a long time. And you are an outstanding person, an outstanding employee, and give that. So I can admit when I don't know things or I'm on the wrong side of it. And if this wasn't such a political issue right now, I'm not sure you'd have this. And this is a great opportunity for everyone to really see what you've done. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the board, my name is Todd Crane, and I'm a resident of 121 Hampton Street. Though I am a member of the planning board, I am speaking only for myself tonight concerning the proposed vote for the new town manager. Before I begin, I would like to thank Lionel for 6 years of service to the town. Your dedication and service to the community is greatly appreciated. As some of you know, professionally, I am a transportation planner who serves in the senior leadership of a municipality immediately outside the city of Boston, and serve on several regional and state level committees representing that community. Through this, I've worked side by side with some of the top municipal leaders in Massachusetts and have learned what makes or breaks a good municipal CEO. First, let me state that I do not personally know our current CFO and assistant town manager, and I will ask for his permission and beg his forgiveness when I refer to him as Ed and not by his last name. I'm horrible with last name pronunciations and do not want to be disrespectful when I inevitably butcher yours. I attended the recent town meeting for the first time since becoming an Auburn resident because I was interested in seeing how our town meeting compared to the municipality I work in, and to watch and judge for myself Ed's presentations, comments, responses to questions, demeanor, etc. What I saw was a highly qualified and knowledgeable professional who was able to articulate and present complicated municipal budgeting information in a way that could easily be understood by everyone in the room. In looking into his professional background and talking to various people in town, it appears that he is not just qualified from a technical standpoint, but also has the respect of town department heads, past and current town staff, past and current elected and appointed officials, and the residents. Now, I know that some are taking to social media to pound the virtual desk and throw out buzzwords like transparency, openness, and process. And we've even heard that same tonight from previous speakers. I believe in and value all of those things just as much as the next person. But the fact is that the board has been very transparent and open in this process. That is why they are able to know about this meeting and issue, post about it in social media, and why we are able to attend tonight and offer you public comment. With respect to process, I believe in and value process, but I do not believe in, nor do I value process for process sake. The town has invested in succession planning to make sure the next in line is well qualified and able to step in and take the reins should should a planned or not planned vacancy come up. We have seen this operate successfully within the last 12 months with the DPW director, the police chief, and the superintendent of schools. If you believe that Ed is not the right person for the job, I respect that. And then you should have a hiring process that includes a state and nationwide search for a candidate that has the qualities that you want that he apparently lacks. But if you are doing the process for process sake, with the thought in the back of your mind that in the end you'll select him for the position anyways because he is qualified, shares your values, and is the right person for the job, then please do him, yourselves, the town staff, us the public, and the potential other external candidates a favor, and do not hold that process for process sake. It is neither good government, nor is it fair to anyone involved, and certainly do not do it because social media bullied you into it. Because for every one person saying you should not take this vote, there were 2 to 3 not only saying that you have the right to take the vote, but also urging you to do so in Ed's favor. To conclude, all I ask is that if in your heart of hearts you believe that Ed is qualified, has the integrity needed to do the job, has and will continue to work with this board, shares your vision for what Auburn is and can be, and has the support of the department heads and town staff, then you should be voting yes on the motion being put forward by Lionel. If not, then vote no. That is what we, the voters, sent you here to do. For what it's worth, I'd vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge the former finance chair, Kevin Hussey, and ask if you wanted to come up.
Thank you, and Lionel. Well, Lionel and I go back 50 plus years, so you're not going anywhere too far, that's for sure. And ironically tonight, Eddie and I go back to the 1990s, the Chris Rath era, so great opportunity for everybody, great opportunity for the town. Everyone has said exactly how I feel here. I do hope you think long and hard on whether the process should continue after tonight. My predecessor, words never better said. You got a great family here. You got a great candidate. So let's just move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Sorry about that. Just trying to go in some kind of order. So I want to go next to department heads. I know a couple are here that want to say something, and I'll include the superintendent in that list. I saw Chief Coleman make eye contact first, so ask him.
I'll remember eye contact. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I really didn't know what I was going to say when I came here tonight because I really wanted to get a sense and a vibe of what you actually had to say. But I do want to start with, from my perspective, Mr. Kazanovich missed a large one that he was involved in that is critical not only to myself, this agency, but the residents of this community. And that was back in 2003. He was instrumental with the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen in bringing a town ambulance service to the town of Auburn to replace many years of underperforming private ambulance services that serviced this community that at some point became a detriment that the board had to recognize. And with the work of many people, elected and appointed officials, Mr. Kazanovich, from a financial perspective, was very instrumental in bringing professional ambulance service to this community that we enjoy today. And I just wanted to point that out and remind you. I met Ed 16 years ago when I came to the town, and I can just say, and I'm not going to repeat everything that everybody said tonight. I just want to personally say that Ed has been a mentor to me. He is brilliant, and I don't throw that word around lightly. There is rarely a situation, and not one that I could actually think of, where I haven't had some sort of a problem, whether it's financial or administrative, even if it was a personnel issue. And between the two of us, we can always come up with some sort of a rational solution. And I think that's important because, again, although he is brilliant on the finance side, I think it's important to recognize that as an administrator, as a professional, as the role of town manager, there are certainly more things that he brings to this table, including human resources, outside the finance world. The next two things that I want to say is I actually want to just highlight on something that Mr. Wren and Mr. LaLiberty brought up. There's the one thing that I think concerns me the most is the message that this sends to department heads and employees, as Mr. Wren mentioned. You've heard the town manager countless times over her years thank her team and applaud her team. And I agree 100%. I mean, it is a team approach. But I think what concerns me is what I don't want to see, because the town of Auburn, I think, has done a very good job of this over the years, is we believe in succession planning. We believe in executive development and leadership training. And we dedicate a lot of time and resources for our number 2, our number 3 positions in those departments. And as a previous speaker just mentioned, we've done that very successfully within just the last year with several key departments in the town. So personally, I worry the message that sends to our employees that are working for the town, dedicated, going and getting their education, getting what they need to climb the ladder, just to be told that once they get there, that, it may not be you. Now, and I'm not saying that it deserves to be always the number 2, which brings me to what Mr. LaLiberty said. And he raised a very good point that I agree with. And what he said was that he does not want this to be precedent setting. And I agree with that 100%. I think, there's a lot of leaders in this room, right? And when I say leaders, I mean by professional status. And that includes the members of the board that are up there. You are all leaders in this community, and you are elected to represent your constituents. And I think it's important that you recognize that government is dynamic. Although most successful governments are stable, but they're also dynamic. And I think that when we hired the current town manager, the decision to go out and do a statewide and a national process was because the board at that time felt that they did not have an internal candidate that could do the job. And they made the decision to go out. Now, this time, you're not faced with that same situation. This time, being the dynamic leaders that you are, I would hope that you recognize that we have somebody capable and qualified who has been through the succession planning, been through our executive development and leadership development. And in this case, you don't have to do that. But if Mr. Kazanovich hopefully is appointed the next town manager, and whenever he decides to retire, he leaves, the board members that are sitting there at that time, they will need to make the dynamic decision as to whether or not do we have somebody internal and capable of doing the job, or do we need to go out and do a search?
I'm sorry, Chief. I'm going to try to interrupt the 3-minute speeches at the 5-minute mark.
Yep, no problem. Nope.
And just ask you to wrap it up.
I just wanted to point out that I don't think that this is precedent setting, and the board, should be making dynamic decisions. And I would hope that this board would support the promotion of Mr. Kazanovich to town manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
I'm told that Joanna is somewhere. I can't see her. Oh, there you are. Okay. By the way, George has some comments about his road.
Good evening. Joanna Paquin, DPW Director. I would like to echo all the sentiments that were made by so many in our community. I've had the pleasure of working with Ed for over 11 years, and I can say that without a doubt, he is the best candidate to fill the position of Auburn's next town manager. He has the knowledge, expertise, and passion to continue the great work that Ms. Jacobson started. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you. And I know Darlene is here as well.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Darlene Coyle, the Director of Development and Inspectional Services, and I've worked under the leadership of Julie Jacobson and Ed Kasanovich for over 9 years. The leadership team has always supported me in the various roles I've held here, as well as the needs of the entire DDIS department. I congratulate Ms. Jacobson on her plan to retire and spend more time with her family. She deserves this very happy next chapter in her life for all of her hard work that she's given to us. Ed Kasanovich is our CFO and our Assistant Town Manager, and he has the experience of a lifetime working in municipal government. While he worked for another unnamed town, before he started here, he chose to stay here in Auburn for the greater part of 27 years. Ed has been a steady leader, and in my experience, he always takes the time to listen to residents and employees. Ed is a problem solver. He understands how to make positive change. Ed has the skill and ability to quickly assess a challenge and always finds a way to get to a resolution. He always picks up the phone when you call, and even if he can't talk to you at the moment, he gets back to you to address your concern. Ed is always accessible, and he's committed to the job and to making government work efficiently and effectively. Ed knows finance. He understands how to balance budgets and has put financial policies in place over the years to get the very well-respected rating of AA+ stable outlook with the Standard & Poor rating. He knows how to lead us in a fiscally responsible way and has shown this time and time again. For the past 12 years, Ed has worked with Julie as the management leaders for the town of Auburn. They have relied on each other to ensure there is leadership continuity, day or night, weekday or weekend, during weather events, statewide or town emergencies, during the COVID pandemic, various town events, functions, celebrations, vacations, and any other time that you can possibly imagine. Ed has been at the helm many times and led the town as the acting town manager. I have personally seen him act in some very emergent situations and have always felt that he had the best interest of the town, its residents, and the employees. And even in the hardest, most stressful of times, Ed can provide a small comment to make everyone in the room laugh, to provide some much-needed relief in a tense situation, and help employees to be able to handle that moment and move forward with ease. He personally has done that for me. Ed has worked hard to give Auburn the best of himself, and his hard work and commitment to the town is truly commendable. Ed, I thank you for your constant support of the DDIS family. Respectfully, I ask that the BOS consider these comments about Ed when you make the decision to appoint the next town manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you. I'll ask the superintendent if she wants to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I came with my prepared statements. And some of these are about, in the short time I've been superintendent or acting superintendent or interim superintendent, I can't express how much support, care, time, and energy Ed has already given me. So I appreciate that because he's been collaborative, he's been kind, he's been thoughtful, he's been honest, he's been there in an emergency, I will say. We had one little thing that I needed to talk to someone and Ed was there for me. But as I sit here tonight, what I heard a lot, particularly at the beginning from the Board of Selectmen, was the word dedication. And you can have a nationwide search, and you may get a person who is dedicated to the town of Auburn. But you have someone that for 27 years, and I didn't know it was that long, has shown that day after day after day. And he has done so when he has communicated with me and with others. He has the best interests of this town at heart. You can't ask for more than that when you put on top of that all of the knowledge that has been shared tonight about what Ed has. So I hope, from a selfish standpoint, that I can continue to work with Ed and that choice is made. And it is a hard one, right? As Mr. Scobie said, you never make everyone happy, right? But when you do it for the best interest of the town, you make the right choice no matter what. And I hope that choice is Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to the recently retired State Secretary of Public Safety, Tom Turco.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Tom Turco, 118 Bryn Mawr Ave. Not speaking as the retired secretary, but I will speak as a active member of the community, working with Lionel, and I appreciate everything you've done for this community over the years, and working closely with you and your dad. In 2011, I was fortunate enough to participate in the search committee for our new town manager. And listening to some of the comments tonight on whether or not to form a new search committee or bypass such a process and direct appoint Ed, I started thinking of the positives and the negatives. And what would be the negatives for why we wouldn't appoint Ed? And I've heard from many people in this room, and everything has been positive. And in my experiences with Ed, he's diligent, he's transparent, he's dedicated to this community. He's dedicated to his family. And even those that may want to push for a new search, they come up here and they say what a great man he is and what a great leader he is for this community. So, I have to wonder, just those words alone, are we just going through a process to go through a process and go and relive that? In 2011, when we were fortunate enough to get our current town manager, who's been a blessing for this community, I worked very closely with her during COVID. COVID and some of the other issues with demonstrations and protests over the last 3 years, tumultuous times for the community. We didn't have those problems in this town. We had very little problems in this state. And Governor Baker, when he appointed me as secretary, I was the commissioner of the Department of Corrections at the time. And what he's done over the years is taken the recommendation from his other secretaries in appointing their successors. And same way with myself, when I appointed, I recommended Terry Reedy to take over as the secretary. So that process is being conducted from the top level of our government all the way down to, the smaller level or the lower levels of government. We were fortunate, as I said, to get Julie, and her and Eddie worked unbelievably together. At the time, Eddie didn't have interest in running. The individual he worked with was in the process, and he wanted to show loyalty. And there's another positive word about Ed Kasanovich, loyalty. He didn't want to complicate and convolute that process. But as a board, this could be the defining moment as your tenure on this board. How we move forward from here to protect this community and moving forward and getting the right person. It's about getting the right individual for the position. It's not about going through a process for the sake of going through a process. Being elected to the Board of Selectmen, you make hard decisions every day. Some people like them, some people don't. Umpires make those same decisions. And you're not going to get those, you're not going to make everybody happy, as George Scobie said. But I can tell you this. In my opinion, this is an easy decision for this community. Don't make it hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you. I missed, a member of the ZBA, and I apologize. Mike, you want to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for calling me out. I wasn't planning on speaking.
Blame Julie. She's been sending me notes of people I miss.
Fine. Michael Marin, 25 Bancroft Street, Vice Chairman of the Zoning Board. Not here speaking on behalf of my board, speaking on behalf of Ed. We've heard a lot tonight about his accomplishments and the kind of man he is. I would echo that and how I know Ed. We've heard a lot about leadership tonight. And so those of you that share leadership know that when you're searching for talent, talent is the most important thing that you place. to get your job done, regardless of the industry you're in. And I face it in my business. And often we're looking for the unicorn, right? And we settle. And we know we don't settle with a man like Ed. You know, and this is a balanced approach here. So I don't miss an opportunity to challenge Ed. And on many occasions, and he'll recall, I mean, I've asked him personally, professionally, to stop finding creative ways for us to afford things. And he's reminded me, and this speaks to his character, but he's reminded me not only in jest, but in sincerity, that his job is to find those creative solutions. As a town meeting member, our job is to decide whether or not we should do it. And that kind of unbiased neutrality is rare, in my view, in what I still consider 16,000 people, a small town. I think that his apolitical approach to things is, and his integrity is beyond reproach. And this has got to be a huge ego boost tonight, right? I mean, sit here for a couple of hours and just hear about, I mean, wow. But from a financial perspective, the word brilliant has been used. There's no question. I mean, this isn't about me. I manage, you know, large, very lucrative programs in my business. And I learn every time he speaks. And I think a lot of town meeting members appreciate the explanations, and why we don't have 3-day meetings is because of Ed's presentations and how he presents them. So I'll end on, when you're looking for the right talent, and I appreciate the risk that's been articulated, you're not setting a precedent. And I know the chief spoke eloquently too. So the second in command doesn't always guarantee the top spot when we have talent that decides to move on. And that's not a guarantee, but I understand it's a perceptual risk. I get that. But you're still in that second in command, still have to prove that. And I think that when you're looking for talent, which right now, and there is a commodity challenge in many industries on talent right now. When you're looking for the right talent, we're kidding ourselves if we're thinking that we're the only ones that find Ed on LinkedIn, right? So don't take that risk either, because, you know, Ed is our unicorn, again, and his skills are just beyond compare. And so it's been my humble privilege to get to know him a little bit on some of the interactions that we've had, but this town benefits from his skills. And so I would say that, and I'll put it out there, and I'm just a volunteer, right? You have an opportunity, but you have a responsibility to make sure that we secure this kind of talent. You owe that to us. That's my view. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to the other department heads. Now Gene Collins and Amy are there. I don't know if either of you want to speak.
Good evening, Jean Collins, Director of the Auburn Public Library. Anybody who knows me knows I don't really like the spotlight, so this is a tribute to Ed that I'm up here speaking on his behalf. I'd like to just point out something. When I came here about 6.5 years ago, I had no intention of staying in a municipality. I had been in academia for a couple of decades. Julie's very persuasive, and here I found myself. The library was in need of sort of getting on a new track, not getting back on track, but setting a new track. And since I was new to a municipality, Julie and Ed were certainly extremely helpful to me in encouraging me to redesign the model and to bring the resources and to really help me understand protocols for municipality. So in accordance with the Town of Auburn Charter, the library director is a direct report to the town manager rather than to the library board of trustees, which many people might make an assumption. With that in mind, in my role as library director for the last 6.5 years, I have had the privilege of reporting directly to the current town manager, Julie Jacobson, and where I would be equally privileged to report to Ed Kazanovich as the next town manager. For those of us who report directly to a town manager, this is a very important vote because that's our new boss. As a member of the leadership team and as a town of Auburn resident as well for the past 40 years, I have every confidence that Ed will bring that same level of intelligence, integrity, and commitment to the residents of Auburn that we all deserve. There's no need to look further. We're fortunate to have Ed ready, willing, and able to take on the role. I join my colleagues in urging the Select Board to appoint Ed Kazanovich as our next town manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you. I know I just got yelled at for calling people out, but once I saw him, I was just going to call him out no matter what. So Bill Coyle is in the audience. And if you want to say anything, former DPW director.
Thank you. I wasn't really prepared to speak tonight, but certainly here to represent Eddie. And when I came to the town of Auburn 13 years ago, I can tell you I had worked in the private sector many years before that. And so I had a lot to learn on how things operate with the town of Auburn. And Eddie was probably one of the most patient people and knowledgeable people, and took the time to talk to me. Here's how you get things done. Here's how you do the budget. Here's how you prepare your capital improvement program. I can tell you that I agree that you have someone who is ready to take over the role as town manager. When I see Julie leaving, I can't think of a better person to take over for Julie than Ed. I think that if you think you're going to get somebody better, you're kidding yourself. And I echo a lot of the comments that have been made this evening. Eddie he's a consummate professional. He is ready for this job, more than ready. I think he has proven himself over the past 27 years. He's dedicated to this town, and I hope for nothing more than for you to appoint Eddie. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. To members of the business community and the Chamber of Commerce, I see Josh Fuller in the back. So you want to say anything?
Joshua Fuller, Route 20 Auburn. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am fourth generation owner of Fuller Automotive Companies. We've been in business since 1914, and I've had the awesome privilege of working with Ed through 2 administrations, and basically of the 27 years, I was part of 18 of them here in Auburn. So basically it's nice to say that a lot of decisions that our families have had to make, tough decisions on expansion, growth, and retraction, we've sought the advice of the town of Auburn. A lot of times that was in the opinion of Ed, as well as the rest of the administration. I think it'd be clear to say, again, I echo a lot of the same comments that has come from the room so far this evening, but I think it's pretty clear that Ed has the innate ability to really professionally navigate through challenges and opportunities, and always securing the best solution in the projects that we've worked on together. So as members of the board, I think it's your responsibility to really do what is needed for the town of Auburn, both on the business side and the residents and constituents. To me, this is a clear decision that has to be made, and as quickly as we can make it, the more Auburn can continue to prosper. And not only that, Ed's been a great mentor to myself as well as my family. So there's no doubt in my mind that he'll continue to do that to all members of the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Town Labor Council, Dee Moskis is here. I don't know if you want to say anything or if you're just... Okay, all right, thank you. Then with that, I'll turn it over to any members of the public that also want to come up and say anything. Yeah, Danny?
Danny Largess, Precinct 4, 39 Perry Place. Obviously, there's no doubt it's probably the best choice. My question is to the board, what is the rush? Why? And I understand, we're talking 8-9 months away. What is the rush that it has to be done tonight? He's been here for 27 years. He's not going anywhere. I hope. I mean, everybody's spoken so elegantly. Obviously, he's earned the respect of the town heads, department heads, and the residents. I've been sitting here waiting for the president to come through or the governor. You know, I just keep looking at the door, waiting for one of them to come in to say something. But yeah, I really do think he's probably the good choice. I don't think you're going to get any better. But my question is to the board, what is the rush? Why does this have to get pushed through tonight? I respect all the comments. You know, I understand Tristan and everybody else who has spoken, but that's my question. What is the rush? Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. I've been told to ask if any of the other department heads want to say anything. I made eye contact and several of them shook their heads, but is there anyone else that is a department head that wants to come up and say anything?
Thank you.
All right. Any other members of the public that want to say anything? Anyone else in the audience? Once, twice. Anyone on the call? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public discussion part of tonight's meeting and turn it back to board members. Ask if there's anyone on the board that wants to add anything now.
I certainly do. I waited to the end because I did want to hear what everybody says, and it's absolutely not inconsistent to agree with everything you had to say and say that we should be waiting until after the election. I've heard tonight nationwide search and other things. I don't know where that came from because it is not something that I have offered, and I certainly haven't heard it in the many discussions I've been a part of. So the importance for me tonight, and my respect for Mr. Kasanovich, and when he went through his list of things, I was in the room for pretty much every single thing that he was there, including what Chief Coleman said. So I went back and I looked at what the previous board did in 2010. And what was very interesting is the dire financial situation that the town, as well as the country, found itself in. And the board decided to do a search. And I often wonder, what would Auburn look like if Mr. O'Connor, because many of the people who have spoken tonight have, or their predecessors, spoke equally eloquently for him and for his selection. And it's just very interesting to me. So as I was going through the minutes, it was interesting. We had 2 search committees, and there were 40 resumes, and there were any number of people on the leadership team who could have stepped into that position. And I feel the same way tonight. I don't feel that Ed, as wonderful as he is the only person that if somebody on the leadership team wanted to put in for it, that I wouldn't consider them as well. And that's why when Mrs. Jacobson called us, I said, of course I respect Ed. I have been in his presence, and I've had the privilege of working with him now for almost 8 years. But I actually have had almost 26 years of working with Ed through many different offices and had an opportunity to observe him. The 2 candidates who are seeking election both hold public office in town and also have had an opportunity to evaluate Mr. Kasanovich. So the Board of Selectmen, being a member of the Board of Selectmen doesn't give you some great insight or great opportunity. It gives you many great opportunities, but it does not preclude other town officials from observing and taking the measure of folks. So my concern is we have an election. Mr. Berthium, who I respect and have enjoyed serving with him for, I guess I'm the only one in the room who served with him all 6 years. I don't know what you did to the others that they wanted to leave. I don't know. But, you know, I have great respect, but I also have respect for the election process. And we have 2 members, and they're going to have to negotiate this contract, and they're not going to have been asked. I have no idea if either one of them, what they think about on the residency requirement. The last person to be a resident of the town to hold a manager-type position was Chris Rass, and he lived on the corner of Arrowhead and Church Street. And I've heard from many people feeling that they would like the next town manager to live in town. Now, I also know Ed is got a wonderful family, and he's established himself over the years in a community. Would he be willing to move to Auburn? Would he be willing to uproot himself if that was something? But more importantly, I need to hear, and I feel that it is important, that the voters have an opportunity to select a 5-member board that is going to be here with the next town manager over the next 3 years. So if the board decides to vote tonight, it will be very difficult, but I cannot vote in the affirmative because I feel out of conviction that our next selectman deserves to be heard on this very issue. They may agree with me, they may disagree with me. They may want to go an interview process, they may not. I'm prepared to listen to that. I think anybody who knows me or has seen me in my various incarnations knows that I've never joined a clique, that I've never joined a faction, that I've never listened to the voices of some to the exclusion of others. And it's with that I've come to my conclusion that, this is something for the next Board of Selectmen, and that is how I intend to vote. But I respect everybody here for their thoughts. I continue to respect the town manager and the assistant town manager, and I'm going to be ready to welcome the new member, and we'll hope that we hold this till our next meeting or the first meeting in June, because, that first meeting can be a difficult transition. So that is going to be my request of the board, and that's all I have to say. But thank you all for coming, and I appreciate everything that my fellow board members said and the public, and that's where I stand on this very issue. Thank you.
Other board members?
I'm good, thanks. I'm prepared to take a vote tonight if we decide to take a vote.
Anything else from town administration?
We're all set, thank you.
I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. This motion was made and seconded, and if there is...
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to withdraw my motion, my second, for discussion.
Second.
And someone else can certainly.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. If there's no other action on the motion, then I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffley?
Yes.
Mr. Berthier?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
No.
Mr. Rent?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So the motion passes 4-1.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote to waive the residency requirement of Edward Kazanovich per section 3.05 of the town charter.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded, again by roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffley?
Yes.
Mr. Berthier?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
No.
The vice chair?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. That motion passes. That one required, I should have said before the vote, these guys know, 4-1 at least, and they received that, so it passes.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into negotiations with the successor town manager.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by a roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffley?
Yes.
Mr. Berthier?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. That one's unanimous. So with that, thank you all for coming out tonight.
Mr. Chairman, if I could please have a few words.
I didn't even get a chance to say your name before you got a standing ovation, so.
Wow, I think I really need that roll of paper towels now. I told you I was probably going to need it by, at the conclusion of tonight. First, I'd like to thank the board for taking the vote tonight. It shows a vote of confidence in me, and I am grateful for that. And for all of you that have come out tonight to show some support for me and publicly convey your comments to the board, I am forever grateful for that support, so I'd like to thank you. I am both privileged and humbled by, of course, the board's vote tonight. And what better way to end my public service career as serving as next town manager for the town of Auburn. That means a lot to me. and it's a good way to end my career. I pledge to the board, as well as the residents of the community, to continue my best to maintain Auburn's good financial standing, as well as continue to improve on the quality of life issues that plague and that are faced by our residents in our community. I look forward to continue to work with the Auburn's management team. I want to thank you all for coming out and showing your support for me tonight, as well as all the town employees. I look forward to continue working with you. School administration and school committee, thank you for your support. And I continue to look forward to work with you, the finance committee, as well as all of the boards and committees that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the hard work and dedication of our existing town manager, Julie Jacobson. Her work over the last 11 years has been remarkable, noticed by many as being nothing short of exemplary. If I could accomplish half of what you have accomplished, I would be considered very successful. Thank you for all you have done, and you will truly be missed. And with that, I look forward to the next chapter in my career, and would like to thank you, all of you, for coming out tonight and showing your support for me. I truly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, under tabled items, we have nothing. Select board member items, we've already covered that. We have the minutes from March 14th and March 28th. Are there any corrections or omissions? Seeing none, I'll accept them as read. And if there's anything, yeah.
Before we adjourn, I just want to say that I'm very glad that Ed's family came out and that you kids got a chance to hear the dedication that your dad has to this town, and what a wonderful job he's done, and what a well-deserved promotion we just gave him. So you have a great dad. Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel, and I feel somewhat guilty. My daughter Carly, who's a nurse at MGH, was headed back to Boston today, asked if she could come out tonight to support me, and I know that she's got a lot on her plate, and she's got she has to go to work tomorrow, and I assured her that it would be okay if she missed tonight, but I want to acknowledge her support as well as this is a really important week for my family. My daughter Brooke is turning 21 tomorrow. My daughter Jessica, my oldest, is graduating with a master's degree this Friday. I'm very proud of my entire family and of course, my lovely wife. I don't know what I would be without her, so thank you for those comments.
If there's nothing else from any other board member, I'd like to give Mr. Berthium the honor of making his last motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Good night.